Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Unmask QR Code Phishing Threats, Empower Your Employees to Spot and Report Attacks webinar. Educating employees about the dangers of QR code phishing, or quishing, as the industry has coined it, is crucial in this digital age. In fact, there has been more than a 2,400% increase in QR code phishing emails in recent months. Leading us through this topic today is Anthony Beverly and Elizabeth Locke. Liz and Tony are members of our Customer Experience Professional Services team. They have an impressive 12 years of combined experience in the cybersecurity industry. Our professional services team has vast knowledge in designing, configuring, and deploying phishing solutions tailored to an organization's needs. Liz and Tony work with organizations around the globe to assist them in creating effective, results-driven programs to help employees identify, report, and mitigate phishing threats. Welcome, Liz and Tony, and thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us today. A few housekeeping items before we get started. We will begin our session with a deep dive into QR phishing, focusing on the unique issues this threat vector poses for individuals and businesses today. Additionally, we're going to offer best practices on how to condition employees regarding this highly emerging threat. We will then open the conversation to the audience for questions. Please go ahead and ask questions at any time throughout this session using the Q&A window in your console. This webcast is being recorded, and everyone here will receive a link to the recorded session once the webcast has concluded. On the right side of your console, you will find links to some helpful email security related resources. Without further ado, I'll pass things on to Tony so we can dissect the history of quishing.
Thank you, Amanda. I'd like to start with a brief background of quick response, or what's more commonly known as QR codes. They are two-dimensional barcodes that can be scanned with a smartphone or other device to open a website or perform another action. They have become increasingly popular in recent years, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic, as businesses and organizations sought to create contactless experiences. QR codes are often used in marketing and advertising to direct people to websites or provide them with more information about a product or a service. Here are some everyday uses of QR codes. I'm sure many of us have seen them on airline tickets or transportation tickets and boarding passes. They're also used to allow people to enter events or speed through basic everyday transactions. If you buy a movie ticket ahead of time, typically if you receive an email confirmation that has a QR code on it. Show and concert tickets, those are also often have QR codes, and even grocery store coupons now sometimes have QR codes. On a product label, QR codes are sometimes used to provide people with more information about the products or ingredients. On products themselves, I recently purchased a product and it had a QR code affixed to it, and it linked to a wiring diagram and an installation diagram and the manual. None of that came with the product or was in the box. QR codes can also be used to perform other actions like connecting to a Wi-Fi network, opening an app, and sending an email. Now, QR code phishing or quishing attacks are a type of phishing attack that uses QR codes to trick victims into visiting malicious websites. Recently, a shift has been observed in the realm of cyber threats. QR code phishing attacks, after gaining prominence in 2020 and 2021, have surged since 2022. And depending on the industry source, this quishing surge has been documented as an 800 to over 2,000% increase just in 2023. With this giant increase, well, what this giant increase means for us is that this attack vector is really working for cyber criminals. It also demonstrates something a bit more insidious that we'll touch on later, the trend of attackers capitalizing on well-known brands such as Microsoft, LinkedIn, and Google. Now let's touch on secure email gateways. We all pretty much understand that secure email gateways, or SEGs, act as the gatekeepers of your inbox, scanning incoming emails for suspicious links and attachments, looking for compromises that might lead to phishing attacks. QR codes can bypass secure email gateways in a couple of significant ways. First, bypassing the URL scanning. Traditional secure email gateways rely on scanning URLs embedded in emails to identify and block malicious links. QR codes don't contain URLs directly. Instead, they encode the URL within the code itself. So when the user scans the QR code with their device, it automatically interprets it and directs them to an action, typically opening an embedded URL. Again, bypassing that initial scan. Secondly, attachment inspection. Secure email gateways often scan attachments for malicious content. However, QR codes are not attachments. To the SEG, they look like images. This means they can evade attachment inspection and reach the user's inbox without being flagged as potentially harmful, leaving them in place for users to scan with the device. Again, QR codes, this is an example of QR codes bypassing the URL scanning mechanism of the secure email gateway. This leaves us with a shifting security focus. QR codes introduce a new attack vector that shifts the security away from traditional email messages. With phishing and QR codes, the focus shifts to the mobile device, and typically this is of course, we as users, it's our mobile devices or our users' mobile devices, and this leaves them vulnerable because we don't know how aware they are of phishing tactics. This is challenging because sometimes users aren't as vigilant when scanning QR codes as they are when clicking on attachments or links in emails. Because of this increase and the use and ability to bypass security gateways, the threat and risk has moved to the mobile device, which is much less protected, especially when it's outside of your security network. As QR codes become more prevalent, attackers are constantly refining their techniques to bypass security measures and exploit user vulnerabilities. For security professionals, this QR code landscape demands a nuanced understanding of evolving tactics and strategic mitigation measures. And we'll cover some of these in a few minutes. Right now, Liz will walk you through some wider threat landscape information.
QR code phishing can have devastating consequences if you're not prepared. As Tony mentioned, we all know that no security measure is foolproof. Taking proactive steps can dramatically reduce the risks associated with this kind of fraudulent activity. QR codes have been of special interest at Cofense because of their unexpected rise in popularity among threat actors. This isn't a new tactic. However, with other trends like PDFs rising in popularity, it makes sense that QR codes would too. This may be due to the lack of security many SEGs have regarding scanning QR codes, especially if they're attached to other file extensions like PDFs, which were the most common file attachment of the quarter. QR codes have also recently been seen generated using trusted domains. As a primary example of this, Google's API chart, which will generate a QR code via an embedded URL. So I'll tell you a bit about a major energy company that was targeted in a large-scale QR code campaign that began in May 2023. Cofense's Managed Security Operations Center observed a large phishing campaign utilizing QR codes targeting Microsoft credentials. This affected a wide array of industries. The most notable target was a major energy company based in the US, which saw a 29% of over 1,000 emails containing malicious QR codes. Other top targeted industries include manufacturing, insurance, technology, and financial services. These sneaky QR codes predominantly use Bing redirect URLs, but occasionally they exploit other domains like Salesforce applications and Cloudflare's Web3 services. Pre-pandemic, QR codes weren't a popular choice just because of the limiting nature of how you could interact with them. As Tony said previously, they have several advantages over a phishing link embedded directly in an email. QR code delivery methods have a much better chance of reaching an inbox as the phishing link is hiding inside the QR image, while the QR image is embedded inside a PNG image or a PDF attachment. So we know QR codes, those quirky black and white squares are packed with information, have become a really ubiquitous part of our lives. From menus at restaurants to connecting to Wi-Fi, they're everywhere. But just like any technology, QR codes can be misused for malicious purposes. QR code phishing tactics vary from region to region. So let's dive into some of the key differences. QR codes are deeply embedded in Asian cultures, and their usage is widespread. This makes Asia a prime target for QR code phishing scams. While QR codes are gaining popularity in Europe and North America, they're still not as widely used as in Asia. This means phishing attempts are less common, but still occur. Phishers will often target QR codes on social media posts or in emails, leading to fake login pages or malicious downloads. QR codes are gaining traction in Latin America, and phishing attempts are on the rise. One common tactic is to place QR codes on ATMs or on bank statements, directing users to fake bank websites to steal their credentials. So now that we've covered some of the geographical differences, Tony, will you cover how to condition employees?
Sure. So there are a number of things organizations can do to condition their employees to be more aware of QR code phishing scams. Among them, train and educate employees about QR code phishing, explain that what QR codes are and how they can be used for malicious purposes, show employees examples of QR codes, and explain the red flags to look for. Also, remind employees to be cautious about scanning QR codes. Employees should only scan QR codes from a trusted source. If they are unsure about the code, they should not scan it. Implement security controls to block phishing websites. Many security solutions can block phishing websites, including those that are accessed via QR codes. And lastly, keep device security software up to date. Software updates can help protect your device from malware and other threats. Also, mobile devices are often less secure than enterprise security devices. And this is because mobile devices often are used for personal purposes, and users may not be as careful about security when they use their own personal devices. Some of the security risks associated with mobile devices include malicious apps. Mobile devices can be infected with malicious apps that can steal personal information or spy on users. Unsecured Wi-Fi networks. When users connect to unsecured Wi-Fi networks, their data can be intercepted by hackers. I personally had to turn that feature off on my phone to automatically connect to networks had connected to previously that were public networks, because I'm not always running my VPN software when I end up at those places and I don't mean or intend to do any other kind of interaction or work. Also, weak passwords. Many people use weak passwords on their mobile devices because it's faster and easier to type them. However, this can also make it really easy for hackers to gain access to their data. Now, while both personal and enterprise devices are susceptible to QR code phishing, enterprise devices generally offer a higher level of security because of several factors. They can deploy managed security policies. Enterprise devices typically operate under strict security policies enforced by IT and our security operations team. These policies may include mandatory security updates, restrictions on app installations, and web filtering to prevent access to malicious websites. Also, they can have mobile device management. MDM solutions provide IT departments with centralized control over enterprise devices. MDM can enforce security policies, remotely wipe lost or stolen devices, and monitor activity for potential threats. In addition, enterprise security devices often run endpoint security software, which can detect and block phishing attempts, malware infections, and other cyber threats. QR code phishing attacks are often carried out on social media. Here's a quick example of a cyber criminal's phishing steps on social media. First, there's the hook. attackers create social media posts or send direct messages to us that pique curiosity. They may include exclusive discounts, free giveaways, or in my case, sneak peeks to upcoming camera or tech products. Then there's the bait. That's the QR code. Within these posts or messages, they embed a QR code, making it seem like it's legitimate and that the code is the key to unlocking whatever the offer is. And then they spring the trap, the phishing trap, where you scan the QR code, it redirects you to a fake website or malicious app that looks like a legitimate one, such as a bank's login page, a popular social media platform, a product or event page where you've registered previously. And so to bring this example to a close or to a final step, we've seen the hook, we've seen the bait, we've seen the trap, and now there's the catch, the data catch. Once you enter your personal information, such as login credentials or credit card information, the attackers steal it and use it, your data and your personal information for their own purposes. In order to protect yourself from QR code phishing attacks, there are a few things you can do. Liz is going to touch on some additional ones later on, but I'd like to give you a few quick ones. Always be suspicious of QR codes that you see on social media. If you don't know who posted the QR code or what it links to, don't scan it. Personally, I don't click on anything until I know it to be safe. And if it's from a friend or family member, I always ping them first and ask them if they sent it. And if they did send it, where does it go and what is it for? Also, use a QR code scanning app if you have access to one. Some can be downloaded. They contain security features that can scan or detect malicious QR codes and warn you before you scan them. Again, keep your device software up to date. Software updates often include security patches that can help protect you from malware and protect you from QR codes. So, in addition, you can educate and help protect your family and coworkers from QR code phishing. Be careful about what QR codes you scan at work. If you see a QR code at work, post it anywhere, or if you receive it in email, don't scan it unless you're sure it's from a legitimate and known source. Also, be suspicious of QR codes that are placed in public spaces, such as posters, flyers, or in random places. I was in a neighboring state at a gas station, a little small, tiny gas station in the spring, and the gas station had two pumps, one in front and one on the side, and the width was the width was the car wide, and like the next thing I touched was the store. So I tap my card and I start pumping my gas, and I'm looking around this area because I've never been here before, and my eye comes back to the gas pump. And on top of the gas pump, there's a sign, and it says, pay with Apple Pay, pay with Samsung Pay, and pay with Google Pay. And next to these three lines, there's one giant QR code. Now, this sign looked like it was just placed on top of the gas pump. And my initial inclination was, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder if, and then I stopped and I thought to myself, what are the chances of me scanning this QR code and figuring out how to pay with three disparate payment options and something not going wrong? Now, it could have been legitimate, but I wasn't taking a chance. I didn't want to go down that path. So when you see QR codes in random places like that, you want to always be leery of scanning them. And you want to be especially careful of scanning QR codes that promise free gifts or discounts. Another means to protect yourself is with multi-factor authentication. This is a security measure that adds an extra layer of protection to your personal and work accounts. With MFA, you need to provide 2 or more pieces of evidence to log in, such as a password and a code from your phone. MFA can help protect you from QR code phishing attacks in a number of ways. MFA can protect you from QR code and target your accounts and access online. They can protect you from QR code attacks that target your work-related information, your banking information, your shopping information, and your social media accounts. For example, attackers may gain login credentials by sending you phishing emails that contain malicious QR codes. If you enable MFA on your work and personal accounts, attackers will find it difficult to log in, even if they're able to trick you into scanning the malicious code and entering your credentials. As always, a best practice is to remind users that if you think you may have fallen victim to a QR code phishing attack or any phishing attack, be sure to change your passwords and report the attack to your IT or security operations team. So now Liz is going to share a few QR code simulation best practices.
So let's talk about best practices for QR code simulations. First is frequency. Layer in QR code simulations to your existing program, maybe once per quarter. Of course, consider your environment and your company calendar as well. When possible, we want to emulate what we're seeing in the wild. So if you can, mimic the real quish reported to your security operations center. This allows for a safe opportunity to practice interacting with and reporting QR code phish. Many of the real world examples that we've seen are HR themed. Think benefits enrollment, payroll, etc. These can be sensitive topics and engage people's emotional responses. So be sure to engage your internal resources. For example, engage your HR or finance stakeholders when considering sending a QR code template in that theme to your recipients.
Some additional best practices based around Cofen's QR code simulations include using awareness newsletters found in PhishMe and additional training materials at your disposal. Awareness newsletters can be sent on their own or before a phishing, quishing, or vishing campaign to let users know about prevalent threats in the environment. They may also be used to inform users that they may be seeing tests associated with these threats. Also, look at additional training materials like quick cards or short training courses to introduce users to various threats and give them additional awareness and training information. We have localizations available for our QR code simulations. They're available in a total of 24 Tier 1 and Tier 2 languages. And we also want to help users become more resilient to quishing to any type of phishing, but to quishing by positively encouraging a reporting behavior.
In Cofen's PhishMe, the QR code templates function like other templates. Scanning the code is the same as clicking a link. It will navigate to the linked website. While using your device to scan the QR code, hover first to provide the destination URL. This is where if it looks fishy, the recipient should not scan it and instead report the email. Let's walk through the simulation process in Cofen's PhishMe. The QR code will be generated by PhishMe and inserted into the scenario email. Each QR code and corresponding URL is unique to each recipient. This allows for individual tracking of interactions. When the recipient receives the simulation and scans the QR code, they're directed to an education page. The education page looks terrific on a mobile device. It's very easy to read. This is recorded as a click in PhishMe, just like it would be with a click-only scenario. Lastly, when you're ready to test it and see how it looks, send a simulation to a small recipient list because it needs to be sent through PhishMe to create the unique QR code for each recipient. Tony, will you show us the templates?
Sure. We currently have 5 QR code simulation templates in place. They are listed here. And to reiterate, they are available in Tier 1 and Tier 2 languages, and we'll have more templates coming online in the near future. But these 5 can be used over the next 4 quarters or number of months to help train users on the dangers of QR code phishing attacks. Liz, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I don't. Thank you. That was perfect. So we are ready for your questions, and we'll pass it back to Amanda to begin the QA portion of our presentation.
Thank you, Liz and Tony. Guests, as Liz mentioned, we are ready for Q&A, and the Q&A is open. I do see a few questions already, so I'm going to go ahead and start with one. Liz, can you tell us how can I find the QR code phishing templates?
Absolutely. When you log into Cofense Fish Me, you'll click on Scenarios on the left-hand menu, then click Create New Scenario button. All the templates will have QR code in the title, so you can easily search by QR or QR code to find relevant templates. Additionally, there's under the tactics topic, you can filter by QR code. I would suggest also using the language filter so that you can reduce the need to scroll more.
Thank you. And a follow-up question. How do the QR code simulations work? When you scan the QR code, does an education infographic appear?
Yes, it does. Yeah, so when you scan the QR code, you'll be directed right to the education page directly. Right now, the template that we have for education is an infographic. It scrolls very easily on a mobile device, looks great, very easy to read, and covers all of the important information.
Thank you. Can I customize the phishing link that the QR code points to?
So full customization is not available at this time. The QR code will automatically have a phishing link generated based on the PhishMe hostname used as the sender domain for the phishing email. The QR code is unique for each recipient and is built at the time of delivery.
Perfect, thank you. When will credential quishing templates be available?
I'll grab that one. I froze for a second. Cofense is creating QR templates based on they're not available right now, but full credential phishing templates are on the horizon for the very near future. There's a little bit more. There are more nuanced aspects of creating those, so we're working on those. Our engineering team is working on getting those out as soon as we can and made available to you. But it'll be pretty soon. Creating those templates, we basically create them from real fish that are identified by our PDC. So we're planning to extend the scope as quickly as possible by harvesting some of that information.
Perfect. Liz, I'm going to bring this one back to you. It's a follow-on question about the education page. Can I customize that education page that the QR code education that an end user is sent to?
Yes, you can customize the education page. You can add logos to it. You can use some different verbiage at the top, and just keep your eyes open because we'll be adding more education pages as well.
Perfect. Tony, how about this one? What is your opinion about blocking incoming emails with QR codes at an organizational level and allow listing certain external senders just to send the emails for special cases?
That's interesting. Within our PhishMe silo or our PhishMe product, we often talk about and espouse allow listing. As far as blocking QR codes from at an organizational level, that may be challenging because, like we said, some QR codes are legitimate. But if you know the external sender, is in your database as someone that has sent malicious code or malicious emails into your organization in the past, sure, you would want to have a tool or a rule in place to block that. But typically speaking, it would be pretty difficult to block that type of external information from coming in because, like we said, it could be legitimate information. Like for instance, with us, some of our open enrollment information had QR codes associated with it. So blocking some of that may have been problematic for employees.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I'm going to take this one, if you don't mind. I had trouble getting into the webinar. Is there going to be a recording shared? Yes, we will be sharing a recording after this session. It is being recorded. Let's see. Is there a possibility to print the poster or infographic for the QR code phishing education and hang it in the office?
Liz,
So
I
Liz,
think
It's an image.
yeah, I was going to say, because I think you had told me about doing that at some point, haven't you?
Yeah, you can absolutely, you save it as an image and then you can print it or save it as a PDF and print it. Absolutely. So I love using resources that way, making them available in different methods, either through your computer system or just about the office. That's great.
Okay. One more question about this. Are the simulations an extra charge or fee from professional services for QR codes?
They are not. So the QR code templates are available within PhishMe. If you use professional services, we're glad to help get those set up and running for you. If you don't, then you can set them up yourself just using the PhishMe portal. No charges, no fees.
Tony, I'm going to flip this one to you. Do most phishing attacks aim to get credential theft? Do you see some of them as an attempt to download malicious software from the site you visit?
Currently, what we've seen in our Phishing Defense Center are that most of these phishing attacks based on or sent into organizations are aimed at getting credentials. There have been some that lead to malicious websites. There was an attack in 2022 that we saw that was a FedEx attack that led people to clicked on the phishing or scanned the code and went to a FedEx login site or a FedEx site. So it can go both ways, but currently a lot of them are based at credential harvesting at this point.
Okay, and then a follow-up, if you don't mind. Are QR codes themselves malicious, or is it malicious with what you do after you've scanned the QR code?
QR codes in and of themselves are not malicious, right? They, as anything that we use in this day and age, they can be used for nefarious purposes, and oftentimes bad actors will figure out how to do that, and quickly, with any kind of new or emerging technology. So QR codes by themselves can be used or often used for good things, but you do have cases where that code that you think is fine, that you received from a friend, that you received via a link, a text link, or you receive via an online post, does lead to a malicious site or lead you to enter credentials so that someone can steal that information. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of getting through our days.
Perfect, thank you. If I receive an email with a QR simulation, what do I need to do if I've fallen victim to it? So, Tony, I think this goes back to your best practices conditioning employees.
Correct. And typically speaking, the very first thing you want to do is report that you have seen or fallen victim to an attack. Reporting it allows your security operations team to help to start to mitigate whatever that attack may have been. After that, you want to really look at changing your passwords on your login credentials, that especially the ones that may have been compromised by the attack. But in our estimation here at Cofense, and in my personal estimation, reporting is the thing you want to do as quickly as possible. And reporting is always the right action to take, because reporting will allow you and allow your organization to better help mitigate whatever that attack and the risk is.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Let me see here. It looks like if a user opens the QR code phishing simulation email on a PC and scans the code with their personal phone, does the education page appear on that personal phone?
Yes,
I'm going to let Liz take this because she was excited when this happened for her.
Yes. So you would scan it. If you scan it with your personal phone, the education will display on your personal phone, just like visiting a website with that website and the infographic on it. This is the one that I thought looked really good.
Okay. What guidance should we provide to our users to help them identify something's fishy with that URL when they are looking at a QR code?
You know, that's on a normal circumstances. Under normal circumstances, you can see the URL and kind of have it all the entire thing. Look at the entire thing as you hover over it or you scan it, and you can kind of see where it goes. You can look at the domain. You can look at any of the sub information. The challenge with QR codes is they're often shortened URLs. They're often abbreviated. And when you look at it as you hover over it, you may not exactly know what it's going or what it's trying to do, because oftentimes, as you know, bad actors or anyone else will try and hide where they're trying to go. So it's a little difficult to really know when you scan a QR code, when you scan to preview a QR code, exactly where it's going or exactly what it's going to do. But if you can ascertain that information, if you can actually see it, oftentimes you can take a screenshot and send that to your SOC for investigation. Or if it's one of if it's safe for you, you can continue on and click it at that point. But it's really, sometimes it can be tough to know exactly where that URL link will send you. And in those cases, I would stress, do not scan and click on those URLs.
I'll add to that too, Tony. Fall back on your basic red flags for any email, right? If you don't know the sender, if it's an external email, if you're not expecting it, if you get a QR code out of the blue from somebody you don't know, don't scan it, right? Just the basics. Trust the person that you're sending it from. Reach out and confirm if you're not expecting a QR code. Just the basics that we do for all phishing emails. Reinforce it. It's just a different look and feel and interaction, but the root of what it is still the same, right? It's still a phishing email.
Perfect, thank you. Our legal team has concerns about sending this type of phishing simulation, as they could be going to colleagues' personal devices. And obviously not all colleagues have corporate devices. Have you had customers with this concern, and what do you recommend we say?
That's an interesting question. So I will say this is pretty new. So I did have this very same point brought up by a client that I work with. And this is a new space, right? If you have concerns about interacting with people's personal devices or having them scan, make that decision internally and confer with your internal resources. So if you want to check in with your legal team or check in with your HR team, I know it's my choice if I want to scan something with my phone, right? If I look at it. But if you're presenting it through a work environment, it does create a new experience. That's not something that people have dealt with as much in the past. So glad to open that up to Tony and Amanda too, if you want to add anything. But definitely an interesting question to consider, and probably do more consideration as well.
Yeah, honestly, I'm thinking too, Liz, what I would suggest is, again, I would go back and lean into what are you seeing from your security operations center, right? Are you seeing QR codes coming in? If you are internally, obviously, I think that brings up the point that you want to mimic what's going on in your unique environment. You want to be sure you're proactively training employees on those threats. I would also say, as mentioned, I think in the best practices section, that we have QR code style of awareness newsletters too. So if the corporate policy is we cannot send a QR code phish, you can always fall back on you're still doing education and awareness training by offering the newsletters and letting them know. And just because you might not be seeing it internally in your own network, that doesn't mean that each and every one of us aren't getting it at home through, as Tony mentioned earlier, social media vectors, also our personal emails and stuff like that. So just making sure that even if you're not seeing it in your organization, you're acknowledging that it could be something that you need to protect on home as well, because as a lot of people are using their personal devices to scan those QR codes, they're probably also having corporate styles of applications on their phones, right? So could be the email, corporate email, maybe if you're using a messaging service like Teams or Slack or something like that. So if they scan that QR code and that comes back with, say, a credential page, and they've used corporate credentials, it's still impacting you and your business. Tony, did you have anything that you wanted to add there?
No, I think the two of you pretty covered all the bases pretty well. Yeah.
Perfect. Does Cofense know when a user has scanned the QR code on their phone? So I think this goes back to PhishMe and the metrics provided in the platform.
Yeah, so it'll record just like clicking a link in a phishing simulation.
Same with reporting as well, right? If they decided they got the email, they immediately reported it, then it will show reporting metrics.
Right. And no personal information from the device or anything like that is captured. It's because it's a link that's generated for that particular QR code for that particular user. Only PhishMe only records a click and the email address for the click. There's no other information captured.
Great. Another question, is it a good idea to focus on whether or not the QR code is expected? So that if the user is not expecting it, they shouldn't scan it, and if it is expected, it's probably safe. Just looking for a big picture idea to promote.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it falls right into leaning on the regular things that you look for in an email to evaluate it and determine if it's safe or not. If it's expected and you know that it's coming, that's an indicator that it's safe. If it's unexpected, out of the blue, or from somebody you don't know or an external company, then those are reasons to think a little bit more about it and consider reporting it.
I know a lot of organizations today, right? When you're, let's say you're doing benefits and health and all of that stuff right now, you're typically posting posters all over or sending emails with QR codes, right? So maybe a heads up in corporate communications that you're going to be getting something sent out from our trusted vendor. It's going to have a QR code. It's safe to scan that QR code. I think, working with the limitations too of promoting it, but then also being sure that each individual understands the safety of it behind it, right? So as Tony mentioned earlier, I think they're prevalent, right? They're like all over the place. So how do you walk that fine line of QR code phishing? Let's see, maybe have time for one more here. We know the threat has increased, but do we have an idea of how susceptible targeted recipients may be to QR code phishing?
I'm going to allow Liz to take this after I say that, again, because cyber criminals have seen such an acceptance and such a wide variety of people actually falling susceptible, we know that this is an attack vector that works. Internally, with our QR code simulations, I'm going to let Liz kind of speak to some of that, maybe Liz and Amanda, but generally speaking, on a wider scale, on a more macro level, bad actors are doing this because it works.
Yeah,
I agree
I'll
with you.
take that. So,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
I've
Liz.
run a couple of these. Thank you. I've run a couple of these and have had some really different results. So one I had with like a point something percentage, and another one I had that was higher than their typical susceptibility. So I thought that was particularly interesting. One of the excellent things is that in PhishMe right now, you can see the current susceptibility for some of these. So if I'm looking at the English versions of the view document one, the current susceptibility is 1.85. The one-time password authentication QR code template has a current susceptibility of 2.63. And the email verification QR code has 5.56%. The other two don't have enough data yet to give us current numbers, but that's a really good starting place, and you can keep an eye on that as well as time goes by.
Perfect. Thank you, Liz. So, Liz and Tony, thank you again for sharing your great insights with us today. I would like to also thank the audience for joining us and invite you to our next webcast, which is the CoFence Q3 2023 Phishing Intelligence Trends Review, which is scheduled at 11 a.m. Eastern on November 15th. Remember, we have a few additional resources available for you to peruse. If you don't, and these are in your right-hand side there. And if we did not have time to respond to your questions on this webcast, we're going to follow up with you directly. Everyone, thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.